All right, and we'll be going forward with the discussion in just a moment. Unfortunately, Mervi Karikorpi, who's the Director of Innovation Policy at the Technology Industries of Finland, is sick for today, so we have an all-male panel, but I think we'll just have to make do with all the limits that entails. But to introduce our other speaker, I would like to invite onto the stage Harri Ketamo, who's the founder and chairman of Headai. All right, I'll just throw out the softball. You were talking about the whys of why you are doing AI in the context of universities of applied sciences. What possibilities do you see for the future in using AI, and what limitations?
Well, first of all, I would say that using the AI is the only possibility because the world seems to be getting so complex, and the only way to handle this is using a tool. And I have to say that I'm not an engineer and I'm not a technological guy, so for me AI is only a tool, but even I understand, having a commercial education, I understand that we have to have a tool in order to make this complex world a little bit more simple. So I think that's the main reason that world is getting very complex, and we have to handle it in some way. Another thing is that I think it's an imperative that the university has to be proactive in trying to analyze the competencies of the future. It would be very bad behavior if we would not think beyond this time and not look at the head, because we understand that most jobs are creating, as I mentioned in my presentation, in the boundaries of different disciplines. So we have to work on that.
Sure. And what about you, in your perspective as the founder and chairman of an AI company? Why are you doing work with the Haaga-Helia and other universities of applied science?
Yeah, I would start with saying that let's focus on problem, or let's love the problem, not the solution. And AI is one of the solutions to solve this very complex big data challenge. I would be equally happy to say that we solve this problem with big data and scientific computing. So the AI, for me, is not a buzzword, it's a tool. But because AI is a buzzword, we have to be really critical and think what AI as an AI brings in and what are other options. But from my point of view, educational challenges are super interesting. First of all, we tend to think that you get one, as Teemu mentioned, one education, one job, getting retired. Such world doesn't exist anymore. The work life is based on thousands of different skills, attitudes, competencies, pieces of knowledge, or in fact in Finland we can recognize some 40,000 work-life related words. So it's not easy anymore to do this kind of work. So AI is one option, good option, and not any AI. We need natural language as well. So not numbers, natural language.
Yeah. One thing that is very, very practical is that as I mentioned in my speech, that there is a constant need of re-education. And this practically means that the volume of education in the society will increase, and we are more and more in a situation that we will meet with a student or a person who has studied quite a lot. There has to be a way to analyze what he or she has already studied, and I believe that that's also one area where we can use this kind of tools. Already now, if I look at our students, about 30% are full-time workers, and they are part-time students. So we are not anymore in a situation that we receive a young person from a high school and then we start educating her or him at the university. We have more and more people who have lots of studies in their back pockets. So the volume of education and number of courses and so on is getting higher and higher.
What kinds of problems does AI present itself to as using it as a tool? So, for example, you were talking about how to predict the educational needs of people, but what are the applications that you are thinking of or doing right now?
In fact, right now, the scaling the education is one of the biggest areas. In Finland, we are talking about only re-educating 1 million people, and it's a small number because we know that global scale, the need is 1 billion or more. In fact, the 1 billion was from year 2015 or 16, way before we end up in AI and robotics hype. So I haven't seen today's numbers, but some 3 years ago, 1 billion people were looking for re-education. And those scales can't be reached without assisting intelligence. And in this case, I have to highlight that AI is not a Skynet, nor Terminator, nor Matrix, which is controlling your life. AI is a tool, like a hammer or saw. Hammer is not controlling you, nor saw. AI should be seen similarity. But it scales our abilities to, for example, re-educate people.
And freeing up people to do the meaningful work.
Yeah, and I would say in many cases the decisions need people, the creative work needs people, but we can replace routine type of tasks in industry, especially dangerous tasks, dirty tasks, or something that no one wants to do, but machine will do it happily and even very fast way.
I think the goal in general is that in the mankind that the simple tasks will be carried out by machines. I think this is a very simple thing. You asked about the challenges. Of course, one challenge is that people seem to be afraid of using artificial intelligence, and mainly because they don't understand. And I'm quite honest when I saw that I really don't understand the technology behind it and the computation systems. I'm only interested in the solution, and as Harri mentioned, we see it as a solution, and we have people who know the technological side. I'm very interested in the applications and implications of it.
Yeah, but I think even though we are in artificial intelligence age, the basic literacy as well as critical thinking are the key elements. And if we go back to history, for example, first industrial revolution, even though it was a turbulent times, a lot of jobs was lost during the first industrial revolution. Some 20, 30 years later, there were more jobs in industries, more workers with better salaries. So an average worker after the first industrial revolution, average worker could buy 5 pair of clothes instead of 1 because of the increased productivity. And this has happened in all our turbulent times in business and industry. No matter if it is farming, industry, or internet, there will be new jobs, old jobs will be lost, but the skills are there. Old skills are still very relevant. Maybe you need to update something. So in that sense, jobs will be lost, skills are pretty much forever, so we just have to decide, are we focusing on jobs or skills?
I've been around quite a long time. I'm older than most of you, so it's a little bit funny that life goes in cycles, and somehow I remember the time in the 80s when the first computers were introduced. In Finland it was Mikko. I still remember the first day I entered the room and we were looking at the machine and thinking about it and almost considering it as a living person. It's a little bit same kind of feeling with artificial intelligence at the moment, that we're a little bit interested and a little bit, of course, scared, and we don't really know all the possibilities, and it's a very interesting and tickling feeling of trying to learn the possibilities and testing, and of course lots of trial and error things and stuff like that, but at least we find it extremely interesting to try to find the right kind of implications.
Yeah, and mentioning 80s, there has been artificial intelligence applications in banking, in insurance industry since 80s. So AI has been here working with us some 30 years. There's nothing new.
Yeah.
We've been talking about AI in the like societal level and the school or university level, but what kind of examples could you give on how AI might change a person's life for a teacher or for a student? How would that look like in their life? What would that impact be?
If I start, so one thing that we are aiming at the moment is that as we now have 3 separate curricula Haaga-Helia, Laure and Metropolia, we try to make it visible so that all these three curricula are put together, and that opens totally new possibilities for the students. So it kind of operates as an eye-opener. What are the possibilities? What kind of new revolutionary combinations can I, as a student, choose within these three universities? In the long run, we may have other key players joining us, but at the moment we're doing it among ourselves. So we try to use the AI as an eye-opener to open the new possibilities.
Yeah, and if we look outside the formal education sector, just going what you need in your work or in your hobbies, we can see that AI can be your personal assistant or your personal twin in terms of what you need. And if we have enough data to model your personal skills, AI can help you to find maybe next job with double salary and how much more skills you need, helping to find where you can find those skills. And it's not always necessary formal education. It can be your friend who already knows the topic and can tell you how you can get this one skill. So in that sense, assisting intelligence is a word that's been used more and more to describe the possibilities of artificial intelligence to help people in real-life challenges.
All right, so you're talking about increasing choice and improving possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And because the challenge for people is information. We have too much information on everything, too much information on possibilities. We have fake information. So we need something that can curate information for you. And now you ask that there are challenges. Of course there are challenges like databases. And if we use AI to recommend something, do we narrow your choices? But that's an ethical question, and that's why we also need to have those ethical discussions around AI. So even though talking about tech, I'm pretty confident that we all at the same time understand that the ethical discussions are super important, especially how we make visible why AI suggests you something, what it is based on. Is it random or is it evidence-based? That's a big question.
I think it's also realistic to think so. I've said it many times that AI is a tool, that it does not exclude the human encounter. And in our case, we have the tutors and the teachers who help our students. AI is only a tool to help them and use it as a way of opening the eyes of the students. But it does not mean that we wouldn't have in the future the very important tutors and teachers who take care of the human encounter. This is the feedback that we receive from our students. We are getting more and more digital, but we are not getting purely digital. We always have the human encounter on the side as well.
Yeah, I could say that what is the value add of school if we just have a mobile app but not the human component?
Exactly. Yeah.
So community and interpersonal relations are not disappearing through the magic of Skynet.
No, not at all. I would say that because of technology, we can turn skills-based training, this kind of bulk type of training into apps, into YouTube videos, for example. But if we want to have also this general literacy, the basic education, especially literacy, communication skills, critical thinking, we must have the human component. We can't turn that into machines. But we can do, so we have to understand that there is a literacy and then there are skills needed in working life. And they are not at the same extreme, they are different axes. So we shouldn't take it either or, but we need both.
And I also think that digitalization, generally speaking, puts more and more pressure on our personal communication skills. And I'm very concerned about the situation, what comes to writing and reading and how we speak foreign languages. And in that sense, the development in Finland is not only poorly positive. For instance, what comes to speaking foreign languages. English is very dominating, but I'm very concerned about the other languages. So being digital, using AI, does not mean that we would not look at the human competencies and consider them as very, very important.
So the concept of critical thinking and learning to be a well-rounded human being is a core component of finding your way in this world, and the AI can be more of a guide for finding your place in a different and changing world.
Yeah, I would say that if we think AI as a tool, it helps us a lot. It's not magic. It's not anything that helps you to become superhuman or you can't do without it. It's pretty much like tool, like you have the hammer. If you need to use hammer, good, but it doesn't help in everything. So AI should be considered similarly. There are, of course, discussions and science fiction and even science that tries to create super intelligence, or we are talking about singularity. But that's not the case, at least in 30 to 100 years. Super intelligence never, but or consciousness. But right now, thinking like a tool, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
And before in your presentation, you were talking about interdisciplinary thinking and finding the new combinations of different disciplines. What kind of work are you currently doing that excites you about what kinds of new things you are finding?
Well, one very important part of that work is the pedagogical work. Because when we receive a teacher at the moment, in most cases the teacher has a single disciplinary education in his or her back pocket. In most cases, luckily, multidisciplinary working experience. Because in the University of Applied Sciences, you can only work as a teacher if you have working experience, and that's a positive thing. So what we are doing is that we are joining our teachers together. We are making our work more transparent, and we have less and less situations where the teacher is alone in the classroom. We are joining different competencies together, but it's a long way, and it's not an easy way, because there are many teachers who feel they like to be lonely riders, and then being teaching in a team is not always easy. But we are going into that direction, and majority of our teachers seem to be happy about it. So I think we are going into the right direction. Then I have to say that also students have a tendency of being quite conservative. I mentioned in my speech that we make it possible for them to study in all three universities. It's really hard work to get the student to move from one campus to another one. They are very loyal to the one that they got their study place in, and they are even more conservative than our teachers, actually, which is interesting. But there's lots of conservatism among the students.
Yeah. And if going what we do right now with the data, first of all, we have to understand, and now I'm talking only about vocational, University of Applied Sciences or corporate training type of things, not the literacy thing. We have to first understand what business and industry, what kind of skills they are looking. And we can find those skills here and there, for example, from job openings, different kind of future forecast reports, different kind of investment reports. So these can reveal what skills are needed now, especially now, and what kind of topics will be there in the future. We don't know the future job names. No one can do. Human can guess, but AI is only understanding what is in data. But we can build understanding what skills are searched right now in some area, in some industry, in certain time limit. And from that data we can predict that what are the trending skills, what skills are not needed anymore that much, so they are downtrending, and what are the new skills that came out. And that is the first factor that we need to know in order to build a curriculum that better matches the industry and business needs. Future forecast is difficult, but when we can make this today visible, it's easier for people. The second thing is, when we put the AI to read the curriculums, we can put AI to compare industry need against curriculums, and we can see what we educate, what we don't educate, what it asks, So what we should develop. And in fact, to be honest, the curriculums are really good. They are just missing words that might sound too easy. For example, in accounting, no job openings ask that you can do percentage calculations. Of course, they are included, so it's not a skill that you don't need anymore. Or this kind of vocabulary-related things. But we can make better curriculums. And as mentioned, from teachers' point of view, in our pilots, we have got positive feedback from teachers when they see that in my area, in my course, the industry is looking this and these skills. Okay, I can do that now when I know that these skills are needed. So one of the great thing in Finland is the teacher's independence, because teacher can change some skill-based topics when it is in limits of curriculum, but we just have to make it visible. And
one traditional way for the universities has for decades been to have a dialogue with companies, and it's quite okay. But the problem is that most companies are looking at the back mirror, and if they are looking into the future, they are looking at the very near future. And with the help of AI, we get a little bit longer trend in this analyzing, as mentioned. That's very important. It's not really interesting what's important year 2020, but maybe more interesting 2030, 2040. And that's long-term thinking is very, 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 very important.
Yeah. But it's also very difficult without understanding past and present.
Yeah.
All right. But we'll be wrapping this up quite shortly for some few questions from the audience. So please start thinking of what you want to ask, and there'll be a volunteer with a microphone who can give you that. So we can do that. But I have to ask you this: what are you most excited about, like for the next year or the next couple of years, of what you're going to be doing and going to be accomplishing with AI and with the changing of education?
I'm very excited to see if we are capable of creating a map that we can understand, that creates totally kind of new thoughts about the possibilities of the future. We have seen some versions and they are very promising, but I'm really keen to see the first real version, so to see how it looks like, and then it will be interesting to see that how much of new thoughts will raise from that.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's like waiting for a Christmas Eve a little bit.
Okay, then the Santa will come. But
it's the Santa.
I'm also interested on how much we can take philosophy of microlearning into everything, because the core in microlearning is not that you watch YouTube video. The core is that you have to learn only the things you don't know right now. And how we can assess what you know right now, or in Finland we can just trust self-assessment that I can do that, but it's not for everyone. How we can measure and make personal curriculums and curate content, namely YouTube videos or some easy stuff, but bringing microlearning philosophy into reality, not just something that some people do because they have to do that.
All right. Thank you for those. And now we have a few minutes time for questions, so the first one's here.
Hi,
Go.
I have the question to President of Haaga-Helia. So we have aging population, and most probably we will have pension age rise for our generation. So do you think also education is changing, that it's providing more education for seniors and more opportunities to start career later in life at 60, at 70?
That is a very, very crucial and good question. I'm quite sure in this issue that the universities will more and more become like platforms of competence development. So I see in the future that we have a certain percentage that are young or about young people who come to us, but we have more and more people who are in active labor force, and they come to us and in order to re-educate themselves, which means that we are not only providing degrees, but we are providing certain modules that we then assess by using AI and having a dialogue with the companies. So definitely yes, we are going to have a lots of senior students As mentioned in my presentation, already now about 30% of our students are part-time, and that figure will increase definitely. And that's pedagogically very important, because the life situation of these people is totally different than our young students. So pedagogically, there's a lot of work needed in that area.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you for the great talk. You were still talking about degrees in your last answer. How long, or first of all, do you think that the degrees, the 3+2 system and so on, the sort of formal education part component, will be there still in, let's say, 10 or 15 years?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned in my speech that Finland is quite a degree-loyal country. I don't see that in the near future we will get rid of degrees, but certainly the percentage of people who take a full degree will probably go a little bit down. But there are quite many jobs where you still, there are kind of laws and stuff like that that kind of dictate that you have to have a degree. So that development will be a slow one, but certainly is a thing that we have to follow closely. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that universities think that they provide competencies rather than degrees, and that already is thinking at Haaga-Helia, Laura and Metropolia, that we are not blindly looking at the degrees, we are looking at the competencies, because that's the only way to make the world better.
And that's a good place to stop. So let us join in giving a big hand to Harri and Teemu.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.